Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Alumni Roundtable. With me tonight from the class of 1996, Brooke Alexander, DO.
Hello, everyone.
This is the second Alumni Roundtable series, and what we're going to just talk about is what was life like before comp, during comp, after comp, and just allow the students in the audience to get to know you. And you and I actually have something in common. We're both, we were transplants from the Midwest, and oddly enough, the same state, Illinois. Can just, what was life like prior to coming to comp? What made you decide, A, to become a doctor, B, to pursue the osteopathic path?
Well, I actually was born and raised in Orange County, California, born at Mission Hospital. But my parents and grandparents decided to retire in southern Illinois, about 4.5 hours southwest of Chicago. So I ended up graduating there a year early at 16, attending Quincy University, a Catholic university. And during my freshman year there, I met Dr. Elizabeth Cordy, MD. She happened to be an MD who was the only woman to graduate out of two in 1959 from the Iowa State University Medical School class. And we immediately, found that we both, led family practice, and I wanted to practice all types of medicine, OBGYN, pediatrics, and even perhaps she even did the rural emergency medicine in her local hospital. So she, 2 years later, became the American Academy Family Physician of the Year. And while I was training, she goes, "Do you know what medical school you're going to go to?" And I said, "No, not yet." I was thinking more along the lines of Southern Illinois University. And she said, "Do you know what a DO is?" And I said, "No, is that a bone doctor?" Like, I still hear to this day by even California senators. But she said, "Well, why don't you go to Kirksville? It's about 2.5 hours away, and go take a look." And, I send students there sometimes. And so I went and looked at that just for a tour, and I found the climate, the atmosphere, the students there, it seemed very non-competitive. They all were there wanting to become doctors. 50% of the students were going into primary care. And I immediately knew that's the career I wanted to go into, and the medical school I wanted to go to, which was a DO school, and I wanted to go to Kirksville. So she was the first one that alerted me to what a doctor of osteopathic medicine was. And she told me if there was one thing she missed in her whole career, and the things that she aspired to, was that she wanted to help patients immediately, that her colleagues could do, fix them when they immediately got off the table, which was learn how to adjust and do the musculoskeletal manipulation that her colleagues who were DOs could. So that's why I became a DO.
Oh, interesting. I hear music, but
That's my phone, sorry.
Usually I just hear the voices, but yeah. Thank you. They're a wonderful audience. So, in addition to my asking questions, I wanted to also let everybody know we're taking questions via Twitter. So, for those of you who are out there who may be watching us on the YouTube stream, the Twitter handle is comp_Pomona. So, tweet your questions. We'll read them live and get those answered. And so, going back to what you were saying, so you're at Kirksville. How do you come here to Southern California? What happened?
Well, I was in the first month or two of my freshman year there at Kirksville. I was accepted there, of course, and my father came down with idiopathic dilated cardiomyopathy. He had rheumatoid and psoriatic arthritis since he was 36 years of age, which is also why I wanted to go into medicine, to be able to help patients and be able to help patients suffering from certain diseases. And so his physician said, you cannot retire in rural Illinois. You cannot take the cold. I mean, the winter times would get down to 30, 60 degrees below wind chill factor and have 4 seasons, extreme temperature changes. So they said, you need to stay in Southern California. So, our parents sat down with my 2 sisters and myself and said, you can make the choice to, change schools or change jobs and come out here now or not, but they're not giving a good prognosis for your father's heart failure. So he was 58 years old at the time. So I came out here during my spring break and came to the dean, at the time it was Dean Donald Kirpin, who's the former AOA president, and said, I would like to transfer schools. And so he said, you know, the two curriculums were totally different. Here they're on a systems-based approach, or at least in early 90s they were, back in 92. And Kirksville was on just the class-based approach. So strictly class-based biochemistry, histopathology, that type of thing. So he said, you know, you've probably lost a lot. You've lost a lot of pharmacology and some biochemistry. So I told him, well, I've worked all 4 years through laboratory and laboratory technician, double major in biology and chemistry. In addition, I worked 4 years with Dr. Elizabeth Cordy. So I've learned all of this. He said, you have? So he started quizzing me immediately on certain drugs, dermatological conditions, and I got a lot of it right. I was surprised, you know, even myself. So he said, okay, you've got a phone, a fax machine in 3 hours. You need to have 3 professors, letter write, you know, recommendation. I want your college transcripts, medical school transcripts, and we may interview you. So basically, I was able to get a hold of everyone, and they went ahead and sent everything for me, and I was able to transfer because my father was basically dying. And Kirksville didn't want to let me transfer because they had a lot of California students and a lot of West Coast students who came out to Missouri and found out it wasn't quite what they wanted. And so they, you know, said, you can have 1 year off, you can have your 3rd and 4th year classes all out there, we'll make a special exception. And I said, you know, I want to try to stay in school so my father could see me graduate from medical school. You know, that's the idea behind this. I don't want to take any time off. And plus, you know, the attrition rate was pretty high for students back in the early 90s. If they were taking time off or taking a year off, they might not come back. So luckily the school here allowed me to directly transfer, with the exception of taking 2 extra tests and 1 extra course to pass. And so I was able to spend an extra year with my father. I lived with my family in Huntington Beach and you know, commuted. I had a carpool partner, John Schoonmaker. He was also a second-year medical student the same time I was. And so my father passed away almost a year to the date that I transferred. So at that time, I knew I had made the right choice and not taking a year off or not staying at Kirksville. So I was very happy I transferred.
Now, life is all about choices, and you know, the choices we make put us on a path. And when you were younger, we're going to treat you guys a little bit later. Dr. Alexander is also an accomplished flautist, and tell them about how your path might have changed academically with a certain school in New York.
Well, I started, as I told you earlier, at Quincy University, double majoring in biological sciences and chemistry. I had academic scholarship, but in addition, I had a music performance scholarship for flute. And I started the university during my high school years. I quit cheerleading to be in the wind ensemble. So they allowed me to take college credit, and I continued college credit there. So during my junior year at the university, I was 18, and my professors and the chairman of the department, Dr. John Margaglione, who was a PhD and also a clarinetist from Eastman School of Music, sat down with me, and I kind of always joked around, and I said, gentlemen, I have one question, am I in trouble? And they said, no, you're not in trouble. I said, oh, good, okay, we can sit down then. And they said, well, we heard your jury, and what a jury was is each quarter you'd have to perform in the public and play a piece with the piano, and then you'd get graded on it, and you know, you also had to teach lessons. So they said, you know, we've been reviewing all of your coursework over the last 3 years, and we want you to drop your double major in biology and chemistry and pre-med, and we want to give you switch you to a full flute performance scholarship, and we would like you to then finish with a music performance on flute, and then we want to pursue you and help you get into a PhD and be a PhD candidate at either Eastman or Juilliard School of Music. And I said, really? You said I was never good enough. And they said, well, you don't practice. The students here practice 8, 10 hours a day. You come in an hour a day to give your lessons, and sometimes to practice. And you also will never play anything perfectly but during juries. I said, isn't that the time I'm supposed to play it perfectly? But I said, you know, thank you, but I really don't want to do that. Since I was a very small child, I wanted to be a doctor. And even as a teenager, I've always wanted to help people. So I told them no.
So then we'll fast forward to your time here. You come to comp. You're in Southern California, and what is your favorite memory of comp?
There were a lot.
Favorite professor?
There, there were several. One of them, Dr. Reyes, he died of pancreatic cancer. He used to be a professor and studied at Kirksville. And so when I came here, he immediately became my mentor, and we would go out to lunch often, and he said that, he felt a kinship towards me since he was from Kirksville originally, and he was brilliant. But during my time here, he actually ended up dying of pancreatic cancer. So it was very sad. I immediately get this mentor, and then he dies. So there was, a few other great mentors. There was a great pharmacology. I had to take extra courses in pharmacology and take the test. So I think it was Dr. Wong. And so we got to know each other very well because I had to take extra tests. And so he would come up to me and, it was very difficult to understand him. So the whole class would be there for favorite, lecturers, and then they'd all leave. And there would be 4 of us or 5 out of 140 students left to listen to him. So he'd come out after course saying, student Dr. Alexander, can I ask you a question? Why does everyone leave? And so I finally was honest with them one day. I said, you know what? They don't understand a word you're saying, so they go home and study on their own. So, but I will tell you, he later came up and told me that he took English as a second language courses after that, and he got much better.
Good. So, there was for those who didn't know, you and I had met when Dr. Lovelace was named president of the OPSC. So we had a picture of Dr. Lovelace that we presented to him, and every past president of the OPSC who was also a graduate of comp signed it with well wishes. Dr. Alexander was one of those who signed it. So tell us, how do you go from graduating from comp, doing your residency, and then working your way up through the ranks, if you will, of the OPSC? How did that all come about?
Well, I always wanted to be politically involved and be in school clubs, but due to transferring medical schools, first year, second year, and due to my father's illness and then him dying, I really didn't get involved much in school activities. So I knew I wanted to do that as soon as I was finished. And so in my, I think, second or third year of residency, I became the secretary of Orange County Osteopathic Medical Association. And that was a lot of fun. I had to take their notes and type everything up. But other than that, I decided that I really liked the organization, and I wanted to not only be an advocate for patients, but an advocate for doctors, because I found, if we're not given a voice, changes will happen without us necessarily knowing, and also give patients a voice at the same time. So I started as secretary and moved up, to vice president, president, and I was president for Orange County Osteopathic Medical Association for almost 12 years, and then in the early 2000s, I was asked to be on the board of directors for the Osteopathic Physician Surgeons of California, since I was president of the county association. And then I sat on that board probably between 3 and 6 years. And once you do that, then you're invited to become the vice president, and then president-elect, and then president. So I just was on that between like 2003 and then 2009 when I held the term of presidency, and then you held the term of immediate past president between 2010 and 2011. While you're on the board of directors, it's very interesting because then you get asked to be a California state delegate for the American Osteopathic Association, where there's approximately 500 to 600 physicians that represent the entire American Osteopathic Association, and basically every DO across the United States. It gives them a voice. And we vote and help make rules on anything from a car seatbelt rule, whether, in California it's 8 or 80 pounds for a child 8 years old, or 80 pounds, to, having for example, we had never even held a women's advisory health committee. So we did not have a women's health committee up until 2003. So I was asked to be on the first women's advisory committee for the AOA in 2003, and I was on that committee for till 2006. At that point, they decided, since it was such a good committee, we were doing the Go Red for Heart for women's disease at the National Association during their conferences. That was, we did that in February. In October, we did breast cancer, wear pink and for the cause. So they thought that was such a good committee that we became not just an advisory, but a full committee to the AOA. And Dr. Teresa Hubka, who is in Chicago and very active with the AOA at the political level, she was our chairman, chairing that while I was on that committee. So that's kind of how I moved up politically.
And then when it comes to your practice, what was your specialty, and what was a day in the life?
Well, I graduated from comp in '96. They did ask me, because I was very interested in the manipulation. That's why I went to DO school, to become a fellow, but I turned that down in my third year, because again, I was trying to have my dad see me graduate, which didn't happen. But I graduated in '96 and went to Pacific Hospital in Long Beach and did my family practice residency, and then finished in '99, took my boards, and I started, I had several, 9 offers of working, but the hospital actually ended up offering me a practice with Dr. Jack Rubin, his nephrologist. He had a practice in Los Alamitos, and basically gave me a practice in Long Beach. And so we were partners together, and we were on staff at most of the hospitals in Los Al and all of them in Long Beach. And I did that for about a year and a half. Then I started a private practice in Irvine, and that was for about 4 years. And then I bought a practice from Dr. Lynn Staton, and had a private practice in Newport Beach for over a decade, which I sold in 2014 and wanted to expand that, where I could work with kind of the epidemiologist population-based studies, work on weight loss, because I've been a weight loss specialist for patients for 2 decades. Since in residency, we kind of predicted right now, 2 decades later, we see that 2/3 of our country is overweight and 1/3 is obese in the adult population, and 1/3 is overweight or obese in the pediatric population. So 2 decades ago, we kind of predicted that. So every single resident and I joined any type of Weight Watchers, Lindora, any program that you can think of, and we compared them all. And we decided to kind of put the best of those programs together and help patients, because we found most doctors, even at that time or even today, will not have the discussion with patients on, you should lose weight, how do you lose weight, if there's medication available, and seeing them on a monthly basis. And then if a patient's morbidly obese, with a BMI of 40, 50, 60, we might even want to consider a bariatric surgeon, referral. So that's what I've been doing in both private practice and at the Federally Qualified Health Center. So I left that, and then I became Chief Medical Officer of Family Healthcare Centers of Greater Los Angeles right after I sold the practice a few months later, and became, we see 45,000 patient clinical visits per year, had 5 large clinics. And then after I established the Federal Tort Claims Act for them, got them in the top 30% for UDS measures, which are basically quality health-based measures for colorectal screening, breast cancer screening, those type of things. Kind of gave them a full, physician and nurse practitioner and PA, so that they had full coverage. I left that, and now I'm joining Mission City Community Network. I've been there since October. I'm the regional medical director. We have 25 clinics in 5 counties, and I cover 9 clinics, and where I'm looking to help them with their population-based studies and helping them with their diabetic program. And I still see patients, which I like, because I did get recruited a lot to become, a CMO, or regional medical director for IPAs, but that would kind of put me out of not seeing patients. So I like the fact that I can actually do research, but see the patients, actually apply what we're trying to get our measures up and help these programs.
And that's going to be a perfect segue to talking to you about Medwell, which is another thing when we first met, and just all of these things that you're doing that it's what we're trying to teach our students here. And actually, I will pause for that a moment. I heard we have a question coming in from Twitter. We're going to address that. Oh. So one thing you would have done differently in retrospect, or one piece of advice for the current students?
Well, I was telling Tom the other day, and the student I met with at lunch, that, if hindsight was foresight, the one thing I didn't mention was between my father dying and Dr. Elizabeth Cordy, that, with my family retiring in Illinois, even though we're from here in Southern California, I was offered a full, for medical school, they were going to pay my entire sum of medical school, living expenses, books, anything up to, I don't know, I think it was $350,000, and that was enough to cover back, over 2 decades ago. And in return for that, I was going to be taking over her entire practice. It was going to be mine with a guaranteed salary. I think back then it was about $250,000 for 5 years, with me just signing that I would stay there for a minimum or maximum of 5 years. And it was funny because somehow they did their research hunting. You think it's a small town, they're all farmers, so how could they find out after I've been there for several years I was from California? Well, they found out. So they said, uh-oh, we're pulling the plug. I'm like, what? Because they were going to pay for everything ahead of time. I was not having to take out any loans, not do anything. And I said, so my father and I were scratching our heads, and we're like, well, how did you find this out? And this was before my father got ill. I hadn't even started, or I was in middle of my university years. And they said, well, we did. So they said, we think you might not come back, so we're going to take all the loans you want out. If you need help, we'll take them out for you. But thing is, until you come back, and just take out as much as you want, but until you come back, then we'll pay for them on the dotted line the minute you come back and sign with us. And I said, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it was funny. I thought about, I probably, after my father passed and all the time passed, I probably should have gone back and taken them up on their offer, and I never did. So I still think about things. I've always kind of been altruistic about money. I'm always giving away money and not thinking about the future. But, I always think if you're offered those, I always tell students, if you're offered a really great option like that, take it. You never know what will happen. So that's what I would say.
And when somebody tells me they're altruistic and they're happy to give away money, I get happy. But, right? They know. But actually, and again, back to that segue, when we had lunch, we were talking about Medwell, and I had asked the Medwell students, student leaders, if you could have something donated, what would it be? And they simply said, we would just love new yoga mats. And Dr. Alexander, will you share the news about your friend?
Oh, well, currently, I've been putting off my patients in private practice, my patients at the FQHCs, which is a Federal Qualified Health Center. We see underprivileged between 100 and 2% below poverty level, or illegal immigrants, or those who simply just can't afford insurance, even under Obamacare. So talking with all of these patients, I'm always talking about fitness, and the books I have in my mind, but I haven't had time to write because I have children and busy. So so I finally, someone actually found me. I didn't find her, but her name's Andrea Albright. She's a Beverly Hills fitness expert, fitness industry, and she's looking at forming a team. So we actually had our conversation, and we're going to put a book together because in addition to being a weight loss specialist for 20 years and working with bariatric surgeons, I've actually done hormonal therapy replacement. But according to, American College of Endocrinology, I don't do the anti-aging approach, which is, basically human growth hormone. I don't do that aspect of it. I just do based on postmenopausal for women, and then men actually go through male androgen pause 1 out of 3 after age 50. The nice thing about men is they can actually turn back on their androgen pause. Unlike women, you're done. But you can continue your hormone therapy and be like men up until you basically, you die in 100 years of age. So that's the nice part about it. But I found out through studying all of this hormonal therapy for 2 decades and reading everything I could and working with psychiatrists and psychologists and looking at interpersonal relationships with men and women, why we are so different. And it's clinical based. It's based on hormones. It's based on the cycles of men and women. And men always joke, "Oh, I have a cycle." I'm like, "No, you don't. I'm cycling." I'm like, "You cycle, 4 to 6 times a day. You don't cycle monthly." I'm just gonna put it out there, unless you have some ovaries we haven't found yet. But so we're actually going to be writing a book about that. So my joke is men and women are not from Mars and Venus. We have never been there before, but we're much more like the moon and the sun. So, but I can't use that title because it would be a little, not plagiarism, but kind of impacting, intellectual property and patent law. In case anyone's listening, I'm not going to use that title. But anyway, so that is the book we're working on. So Andrea Albright, being a fitness expert, has given me a site where I can find these yoga mats. So I'll be donating what you said, 12, or I don't know how much you needed.
Yes, 12.
And
I was gonna go from where I was gonna go. Well, why don't we do 25?
I actually asked her too, because in the back in the day, the reason why I got into fitness is I used to lead the aerobics in college for the entire dormitory and for the men's football team and men's volleyball team. But in addition, and come up with my own routines, but I'm not certified. But in addition, I just got into being healthy, eating, and weightlifting for 20 years because I found that, doing manipulation on patients, kind of as patients got larger and larger and taller, it was hard to manipulate if you're not that large. So I was weightlifting about 2 hours a day for 20 years and, water skiing, wakeboarding, snow skiing, and being active. And so I got in with the fitness industry and working at Gold's Gym in Venice and Powerhouse in LA, working out and training. And so anyways, I asked her, would she come and do a weekday with me and help the students and during their hour at lunch? She said, absolutely.
Fitness Friday, fantastic.
Yes,
That's great.
Yes. So she'll be coming. She's a fitness and industry expert. And in doing those. So.
And so, okay, so now what we've heard, that you are a musician, an author, in addition to being a physician.
No, I'm not an author, not yet.
Well, we got to put it out there. Positive energy.
We're working on it after 2 decades.
But you've also had you've also had a little bit of time on television, reality TV,
yes.
to be specific. Tell us about that.
Well, there's a lot of doctors that want to do celebrity and TV, and because I was so politically involved and having my own practices and now working with FQHCs, I actually kind of strayed away from that. I always joke around with my patients, I kind of lay low under the radar. But I've done a few news shows, like in Long Beach, there was Dr. Jack's House Call that got syndicated to Los Angeles. And then I did a few local news shows in Orange County. We talked about the flu virus. We talked about heart attacks and strokes prevention. And then I actually was on the Real Housewives of Orange County, just a little snippet of it for the princess party for Alexis Bellino and her twins. I'm not violating HIPAA. It's on there. She and her husband, Jim Bellino, wanted to thank me, and it was true reality because I didn't know about this prior, because they thanked me for diagnosing her triple pulmonary embolus when she was pregnant with her twins in her 3rd trimester, because she was literally sent home from that hospital the day I forced her to be readmitted and do a scan, because I had seen her in my private office the day before, and I was convinced she needed to be scanned for a pulmonary embolus. And just even the day waiting and being discharged and being sent back up, she had not just one, but a triple pulmonary embolus in both lungs. And so she took the time and said she had a blowout 4-year-old birthday party for both her twins to thank me for saving their lives. So Bravo mixed it up a little bit, but that's, so I'm not violating HIPAA was all over, and they kept playing it in reruns. So I had patients coming in for months saying, "You're famous, I have a famous doctor. I may have woke my husband up, I made him watch." And so it was kind of funny. I actually didn't talk because I was frozen. I was hiding behind the parents. I didn't want to be on reality TV, so I didn't want to be known for that. But it was nice, and colleagues were coming up to me, and so it was fun.
Yeah, and I mean, how many people can say, yes, I've been on a reality TV show?
And thanked internationally.
Thanked internationally, exactly.
Yeah, so.
So we're going to circle back to the musical piece. I didn't just throw it out there that she was an accomplished flautist. She actually brought her flute along to prove it. And
he made me.
Yes, I made her. It cost her 12 yoga mats. But yeah, we're gonna set that up, and yeah, we're gonna hear a number. Everybody, be so kind. Put your hands together for Dr. Brooke Alexander. We're gonna set up everything, and No, that's okay. I have a stand-up routine that I've been working on. Just, yeah, thank you, Nick. That was a joke.
They found out in residency that I was a flautist, so each year, or a couple times a year, I would play for the psychiatric patients. They'd bring all the inpatients, outpatients, and I'd play for them. And we would do it around the holidays. And so I'd bring in all my books and Christmas books, and I'd let them, choose different songs to play, and I would just wing it and play. And one time when I was playing, one of the patients, and these are psychiatric patients, some of them were inpatients, said, "Stop! Stop!" And I mean, I was right in the middle, but I stopped, and I said, "Yes, sir, what's wrong?" He said, "How do you get all that air in you?" And the nurses and the doctors and the residents and everybody was there. Everybody just, they couldn't help themselves. They all started laughing. But the patient, he was laughing too at himself. So sometimes you need to be self-deprecating. I always tell everyone, laughter is truly the best medicine.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Do you need me to hold anything, do anything?
Yeah, can I use the whole
You get okay.
Yes, or
Yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
here?
Whatever works for you.
I just need someone to hold.
Okay.
Okay.
Look, Ma, I made it.
So this is Claude Debussy Syrinx. It's just a flute solo. You can do without accompaniment. Is there any classical people here? Well, is there any music?
classically trained
Any
musicians?
music people? No one plays?
Okay.
Well, they say a new study has come out, and I was telling some of my patients. Who? You play piano? Well, they say for children that it not only improves their mental performance, but actually their sports performance. They're actually better coordinated. And they even said it was the Mozart effect, right? We've always think it was classical Mozart effect. But now they've come out, the most recent study in neuroscience says it's actually any music. So I told one of my patients this at my Federally Qualified Health Center. He says, "Doc, is it true? Any music?" I said, "Well, yeah, I suppose any genre. It could be country western, rap." He's rap, really? He goes, "I heard it helps plants." And he says, "But I thought it was just classical." And so I jokingly said, "I suppose it depends where the plant comes from." And he almost fell off his chair.
All right.
Okay.
All right. And a question on Twitter. Where did all that air come from? That was wonderful. And you know what? I think this is probably the best time. Got a member in the audience, Trustin Moore. Trustin is actually a student at our dental college, but he's, I'm sorry? Vet, my apologies, Vet Med. But he's also the president of the Musicians in Medicine. And I wanted to bring him up here really quickly because we have a little something for you. Yes. And Trustin and I were talking, and we have a little something here for you. Go ahead and unravel that. Hold that up to the cameras.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Dr. Alexander, you are now an official member of the Musicians in Medicine.
I'll wear this when I work out.
Awesome. That's great. Perfect. And Trustin, thank you. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. So, nowadays, you keep busy with you want to do, she wants to do another one. You guys want to hear another one? Yeah, all right, absolutely.
Little one more, that's all.
Just after that we have to pay. What is the next one you'll be doing? Time to Say Goodbye. Oh, beautiful, beautiful, Andrea Bocelli. And then, and I'll tell you what. Yeah, after she's done playing this, we'll open it up to you guys to ask her questions. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, at this point, I want to open it up to the students in the audience. If you have any questions, you're welcome to come up and speak them into the microphone, or if you want to shout them, I'll repeat them. Either way. And by the way, while they're thinking of that, I have to say a special thank you to Russell Heskin, the Director of Alumni Affairs, for taking care of the food tonight. The food, of course, not compliments, we paid them, pizza pirates. But right. But thank you, Russell, for arranging
you.
that. We really, really appreciate you. So with that, are there any questions? Wow, no questions. Well, Dr. Alexander, it was great to have you. A big welcome home. I'm so glad you were able to come by and spend the time with us. And I want everybody to prepare for the next Alumni Roundtable. I'm going to call him out right now. Kieran Kavi, class of 2011. You'll be our next guest. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll let you get back to your studies and have a great night. Goodbye, all. Thank you.